Okay, welcome back. It is a gorgeous Good Friday, so thank you for tuning in. We are continuing with The Boys Start the War, Chapter 5, Peace Offering. Peter, Josh, and Jake were waiting in the bushes when Wally came around the bend. "What happened?" asked Jake. "The Malloy sisters just stomped by here mad as ever." Wally was miserable. "Well, I just declared war," he said, and then he told him everything that had happened. "Oh boy," said Jake. "Wow," said Peter. For the rest of the way home, Josh and Jake talked about what they would do if the Malloys tried to get even with Wally for bumping Caroline's nose, because they were in the same class with Eddie. "That Eddie would try anything," said Jake. "If she dumped her tray on me in front of those teachers and everyone in the lunchroom, could you imagine what she'd do when no one was looking?" "Hey, by the way, speaking of that, did you watch her pitch at recess? Whomp! That ball comes at you before you can even look at it cross-eyed," Josh said. "Who's the other sister?" asked Peter, walking fast to keep up with him. "Oh, her name's Beth," said Josh. "She's kind of weird. She sits on the steps at recess and reads a book." "A whomper, a weirdo, and a crazy," said Jake. "I wonder how the Benson guys are doing in Georgia. I bet they miss us like crazy." When they reached the house, Wally took a box of crackers up to his room and sat on the floor to eat them, with his back against his bed. He still couldn't believe that he was the one who had officially declared war on the Malloy girls. How had it happened? Only a week before, he was lying on his back in the grass. And now here he was, number one on their most wanted list. He was on bad terms already with his teacher. He had almost broken Caroline's nose and had made everything worse by calling her sisters stupid. Miss Nelson does not like that word. Well, they were stupid. And deep down, 7 layers beneath his skin, Wally knew he was glad that he had thrust his head back and bumped Caroline's nose. He had just wanted her to stop bugging him, that's all. But her nose sure looked peculiar by the end of the day. It was a lot redder and fatter than it had looked that morning. Then he had another thought. What if it really was broken? Whoa, what if she had to have an operation? And he had to pay for it. His hands began to sweat, and he swallowed the piece of cracker in his mouth without chewing. Was there such a thing as just a sprained nose? A bruised nose? A slightly but not completely fractured nose? Maybe it was just bent. Oh. Peter walked into Wally's room and sat down beside him on the rug. "What are we going to do next?" he asked excitedly, helping himself to a cracker. He rested one hand on Wally's leg, looked up at his older brother. What Wally wanted to do, in fact, was just sit on this rug for the rest of his natural life and never have to face the Malloys again. "You're the general," said Peter. "Huh?" said Wally. "That's what Josh said. He says you're the one that declared war, so you've got to call the shots." "That's what he said, all right." "Oh," moaned Wally. "What I think we should do," said Peter, "is dig a big hole and cover it with leaves and sticks. And when Caroline and her sisters walk across it, they'll fall in, and we'll keep them trapped in the hole forever." "Oh, Peter, go out and play," said Wally. The boys were strangely quiet when their father came home from his mail route around 4 o'clock. Jake was planning strategies in a notebook. Josh was drawing a picture of Eddie dropping her tray on Jake, just for the record. And Peter was building a pit out of toothbricks, then running a matchbox car over it and watching the car tumble down into it. Wally was looking out the window, wondering how far away he could get if he climbed on the first Greyhound out of town. Mr. Hatford took off his ball cap and went out to the kitchen for a Mountain Dew. Then he leaned against the doorway and looked at the boys. "Well, I'll tell you what, you'll be interested to know that the Malloy girls are Eddie, Beth, and Caroline." "Oh, tell me about it," said Jake. "The way their mother described them, they sound like 3 live wires to me." "Ugh, crossed wires, more like it," said Josh. "Short circuits, actually," said Wally. "A whomper, a weirdo, and a crazy," Peter repeated. Mr. Hatford frowned. "Well, you boys can either make yourselves miserable by wishing the Bensons were back, which they are not, or you can enjoy a great September day, which it is." and I, for one, aimed to enjoy the day. He took a soft drink out to the porch along with the paper. Jake looked at Josh. I'll bet they'll spread it all over town how they tricked us. Everyone's going to be laughing at us. Well, you know what we could do, don't you? Said Josh. Let's just totally ignore them. Freeze them out. Not even give them the time of day. If we see them coming, we could just turn and walk the other way, said Peter. We can't, said Jake. We declared war. Oh, yeah, right, said Josh. Hoo boy, thought Wally. The hardware store was open until 9 most evenings, and this was Mrs. Hatford's night to work. When she popped in about 6 to make dinner, she said, Hey, boys, I have a job for you. I baked a cake this morning before work, frosted it at noon, and I want you to take it over to the Malloys right now so they can have some with their supper. Wally stared at his mother as though she'd just grown another head. Well, don't look at me so astonished, she said, coming out of the kitchen with a large square box. It's the traditional way to greet a new family in the neighborhood. You guys know that. The Bensons did it for us the first week we moved in. And I'll never forget how good that cake tasted after unpacking all day long. But, Wally began, just hand it to whoever answers the door, tell them it's from the Hatfords, and say, Welcome to Buckman, said Mom. Then come right home because dinner's almost ready. Could we just leave it on the porch? Asked Wally. Wallace Hatford, you certainly may not, Mother scolded. A dog could get into it. There might be rain. All sorts of things could happen. What's the matter with saying a few cordial words to a new family? Hurry up now, who's gonna take it over there? Wally looked at Jake, who looked at Josh, and then they all turned towards Peter. No, Peter is not going over there alone. This is a 3-layer chocolate chiffon with whipped cream frosting, and I worked on it a total of 2 hours and set it on a plate that I got from Miss Aunt Ida at Christmas. I want to make sure it gets there in one piece. You know what? You can all go. Hold this box steady now, she instructed, thrusting it into Wally's hands. If that cake slides around, the icing's gonna come off and all over the sides of the box. Tell them there's no hurry in returning the plate. Wally and his brothers moved down the front steps as though they were headed for a funeral, and Wally carried the remains of the deceased in the box. This cannot be happening, he thought to himself, but it was. After half breaking Caroline's nose, this would look as though he was saying he was sorry. He was not sorry, and now he was mad as anything. Okay, if Caroline comes to the door, Wally, let her have it, said Jake. Swoosh, right in the schnoz. It'll be worth the whipping we get when we go home. Uh-huh, said Josh. Wait a minute. No way. Wait, said Josh. Dad'll march us back over there and make us apologize, and that's going to be even worse. Don't do it, Wally. You take it, said Wally, holding the box out towards Jake. Eddie dropped her tray on you in the cafeteria. You could just drop this on her. We'd just say we were getting even. No way, then I'd still have to go back over and apologize, and I'm not gonna apologize to Eddie. If someone burned my feet with hot irons, I wouldn't apologize to her. Wow, said Peter, impressed. They walked down the sidewalk, crossed the road, and started along the bank towards the swinging footbridge. I know what we can do, Wally said at last. We could creep over there to their front porch, set the cake in the front door, then ring the doorbell and run. That way, we wouldn't have to say anything at all. If we can get over there without them seeing us. Okay, here's what we're gonna do, Jake said. Once we get across the footbridge, we'll stay off the Island Avenue and keep to the bushes along the river. When we get opposite to their house, we'll put the cake on the porch when no one's watching. Well, this isn't any fun, grumbled Peter. I thought this was a war. It's just a temporary ceasefire, Jake assured him. The boys had just stepped onto the swinging bridge and started across when Wally's heart almost stopped beating. For coming down the hill on the other side were the 3 Malloy sisters. And a moment later, they too were on the bridge. For a moment, everyone froze. The Hatfords at one end, the Malloys on the other. Now what? Said Wally. They're trying to block us, said Jake. Just keep walking. If they want to fight, they'll get one. No fighting. The boys started forward again. The girls moved forward too. The swinging bridge bounced and jiggled as the two groups came towards each other. Wally held onto the cable with one hand, the cake with the other. He'd never fought a girl in his life. None of his brothers had. And he knew that for all Jake's talk, they wouldn't begin fighting girls now. There's no way. This was a different kind of battle, a war of the wits. But what if the girls didn't see it that way? What if the Malloys got in the middle of the bridge and started trashing them? Could they fight back then? No, they just couldn't. The Hafford brothers had fallen into a single file line as they approached the middle of the bridge. You always did that when you met someone coming towards you. You always said hello and moved over to make room. The Malloy girls, however, came in a row, straight for us. Okay, the first one who tries anything gets the cake right in the face, said Jake. The next thing Wally knew, he was face to face with Caroline Malloy. Actually, face to nose. Because her swollen nose seemed to take up half of her face. It had also kind of turned black and blue. He realized suddenly that if he just gave the girls the cake, he wouldn't have to walk all the way over to their house. He wouldn't have to ring the doorbell and say nice things to the parents. He wouldn't have to fight the girls. He wouldn't have to fight the girls to get on the other side of the bridge either. Here, he said, holding out the box in front of him. It's a cake. Caroline stared at him, then at her sisters. No, really, it's a cake. It's for you. Oh, sure, said Eddie. I'll just bet it is, said Beth. What dead animal did you dream up this time? Suddenly, Caroline grabbed the box out of Wally's hand and in one swift toss, flung it over the side of the bridge. Oh, no. Wally and his brothers stared in astonishment as Mother's 3-layer chiffon chocolate cake spilled out into the water, the top 2 layers heading in different directions. The box, with the bottom layer still in it, bobbed up and down in the current, and the whipped cream frosting like foam floated down the stream. Oh, no. Okay, we're on chapter 6. I'm going to take a break and I'm going to come right back, and I'll put this out again today too, so we'll have 2 chapters. I love you very much. Mwah.